look at the essential documents in project management. There are many documents according to PMBOK PMI, but it all gets tailored in the real time or the actual projects. But then you need a bare minimum or essential documents in project management. Let us look at what are those documents. So this one, what I've done is I have segregated based on the different phases of the project, like initiation, planning, execution, control, and closure. So any kind of a project, yes, there are going to be, of course, there are going to be deviations, but yeah, these are the generic documents you will come across in a practical project management environment. So let's go through one by one. The first one is, of course, the feasibility study, that initially, even before the initiation of a project, you might require a feasibility study or a feasibility report, which may or may not be maintained by the project manager at all. It could be an internal first step whether you require such a project to happen. So this one could be a first step initial document. And then if it is going to be entirely controlled internally by the company, yes, there is going to be a requirement of project charter. But otherwise, most of the projects, you might require contracts in place, or contract, you could have statement of work, which describes about what is the nature of the work, the scope of work, what is going to be the schedule at a very high level schedule, and then what is going to be the payment milestone, and then it might even contain something like whether it is covered under warranty, what is the change control, even it might have points about if there is a kind of a dispute, how to resolve the dispute, whom to approach in case of disputes between the two entities. So all this could be under the contract or statement of work when multiple parties are involved. Multiple in the sense, if it is going to be a vendor customer relationship, then yes, this is an essential document, contract statement of work, and it also include whether it is an FP project, that is fixed price project, or time and material kind of a project. So if it is going to be vendor and a customer relationship, contract and statement of work is the start, at the start of the project, that is required. Without that, if you're starting the project, you are something like inviting trouble. So this needs to be there, the contract and statement of work, if it is going to be multiple parties are involved. So that is for the project to get initiated. And once you get into the planning, yes, you need to have a detailed plan, like the schedule, work breakdown structure, all this needs to be there. And then you start doing, you need to have a requirement specification, you need to have a design documents in place. That is as far as the planning stage. And then comes the execution. You might need to have test document and earned value analysis, that is to compare the plan to actual, so that you can take corrective action, whether it is on budget, behind budget, or ahead of behind schedule, ahead of schedule, whether you are overspending or you are underspending on the budget. So earned value analysis will provide you those details. And then comes the change control. During the execution, you will come across a scenario of scope changes, and what is the you need to have this change control document needs to be maintained. So then comes the transition plan, particularly at the closure stage. That is where the development gets into the operation stage or a support phase. So then it goes into transition plan, lesson learned, and archiving of the project. So we'll then see the rest of it, that is the ongoing one. Let's now look at the ongoing documents. Which means across the phases of the project needs to be, kept updated across the project phases. So the point to note is these documents could always be overlapping at some point of time. There is, and again, that is depends on the a specific project, but this is about providing an overview. So the as far as the ongoing documents, requirement based on the requirement specification or basic designs, then you might classify them as functional and technical documents. So that functional is something like functional folks perform that is functional consultant, and technical is totally like the database design and so on and so forth, provides all the technical details as what are the tables which is going to be, I mean, I'm talking about from a software development perspective. So which are the tables which is going to get impacted, like the entity relationship diagram and so on and so forth. So functional and technical documents, if you look at it, it extends till up to the control stage. The reason being, if there are going to be changes requested, then naturally this document, the functional and technical document, needs to be updated. Again, this is where if there is going to be a scope creep, needs to be documented in the functional and technical. Suppose a developer might go ahead and provide some small changes requested without consulting a project manager, then yes, if it is not updated in the functional technical documents and it is not approved, then at a later stage it could just boomerang back. So the scope creep as well as gold plating should be avoided. So whatever is there in the functional technical documents, whatever has been updated, only that needs to be executed. And then time entry, because your cost depends on the time entry, whether it is labor, machinery, usage cost, across right from initiation, planning, execution, control. It is low at initiation, planning it goes up, and execution is where it is going to be at the maximum. The time entry, this one, control is also will be at higher end, and towards closure it will taper off as far as the time entry is concerned. Risk register need to be initiated right at the initiation and till up to closure it needs to be tracked. Minutes of meeting, very critical. Minutes of meeting, it needs to be there whenever there are meetings across the stakeholder. To this needs to be maintained, minutes of meeting, so that any conflict you can go back and refer to the minutes of the meeting. Issue log, right from starting to the closure. Procurement, whether if you are involving subcontracts or you may procure some machineries, the procurement needs to be there across most of the phases till up to control. At closure stage you might not require. Billing, payables, you might receive bills from your vendors, or you might issue bills to your customer for payment. So both the ways could happen, billing at the payables and billing at the receivables, and project plan and scope updates. So it could happen at the right from execution stage, these updates could happen. So that gives you a big picture about the essential documents for the project. I mean, this needs to be maintained, and these are not only essential, the bare minimum documents one needs to have in the project, and additionally cannot be any project cannot be an exhaustive list. So depending upon the project, the documents we might vary as well. So thank you, stay tuned.